Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. Good morning for those on the West Coast and good afternoon for those in the East Coast. It's great to have you. Just want to double check that you can all see my slide deck. Here we go. Great. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jose Aranda. I'm working as Relationships Manager with the Water Hub. And we have a great set of panelists today. I'm joined by Alicia Smith with the Junction Coalition and Chelsea Boozer with Rogue Water Lab. And we have my colleague Susan Garcia supporting us on the back end. Please feel free to drop any questions in the chat as we move through the presentation. This is meant to be both a presentation and a discussion. So we're happy to go to your questions at any point. And like I said, our colleague Susan is going to help us with that. Before I introduce Alicia and Chelsea, just want to highlight why are we gathering today to present this communications guidebook. And the reason is that we think that building trust between water utilities and communities can really improve and open the door to how we better manage our water system. And our assumption is that good communication practices between utilities and communities can help a lot with building trust, with getting public support to avoid conflicts, to prevent crisis or address crisis, and to ensure a smoother, more effective implementation of water projects in our communities. So in this webinar, we're launching a new water utility communication community communication guidebook that was co-created with the Junction Coalition Water Hub with support from Rogue Water Lab. And so what we're going to cover, and we can move to the next slide, is first the importance of trust between utilities and communities. And then we're going to talk about some case studies. We looked at 5 different places in which there have been communication challenges and try to analyze and draw lessons from that. And then we came up with a list of recommendations for both utilities and community members on what are the best practices, what to do and what not to do as a way to, to some extent simplify this, but also to give some rule of thumbs for everyone working on this issue. I'm joined today by Alicia Smith, who is the co-founder and executive director of the Junction Coalition, a community nonprofit based in Toledo, Ohio. Before her role, she was the community engagement director for Freshwater Future, as well as a principal and educator. She has been awarded the Environmental Justice and Equity Expert Award by the Urban Waters Learning Network in 2020, and she is a 2025 Wave Maker honoree. She's always making things happen in the Junction neighborhood, and we're so happy to have her today. And I'm also joined by Chelsea Boozer, who has dedicated her career to advancing public trust in water through communications, policy, and engagement. She currently serves as the executive director of Rogue Water Lab, a nonprofit that equips and inspires the water sector to strengthen stakeholder relationships, enhance transparency, and build durable trust with the public. Before her role, she serves as the government affairs manager for Central Arkansas Water, which is the state's largest drinking water utility, where she led government affairs and stakeholder engagement. So welcome to both of you. There's more information on the Junction Coalition. They are a community-based organization that is grounded on 4 pillars: social justice, environmental justice, economic justice, and peace education. in support of all the families in their community, and a little bit more about Rogue Water Lab, building trust throughout the sector, specializing in translating complex water issues into more accessible strategies. And like I said, my name is Jose Aranda. I work with the Water Hub. We are a water communications organization. We develop research, tools, and training. We provide on-hand communication support. And we also do webinars. So with that, I'll pass it to Alicia to open us up with why trust matters.
Well, hello everyone. Such a pleasure to be on with Water Hub. And I see Chelsea as just Rogue Water Lab is just it's just a great way of connecting why trust matters. Because you have someone that is talking to utility and she'll talk more about that. But why trust matters from that community education and engagement space in that community participatory action is that you're not having something done to you without you. We have that motto of nothing about us without us. So even when it comes to the utility, making sure people understand what is being done to best manage clean, safe, affordable drinking water for all. Making sure that residents understand how to read their bills, when the water bill is going to go up, why they should, why things matter to them. Not just trust, but connecting trust to their lives, their livelihood, the social impact of what's happening to them. Because there can be misinformation. There can be information that individuals get and they think, for instance, many of us were faced with the issue of, well, the lead surveillance lines are going to be replaced. What was the problem? Getting into people's homes to check their lead service lines to see if they were galvanized, copper, or lead. And the utilities couldn't get in. Is why we needed to build the connection, the relationship, the trust with the community CBOs. And when you do that, where the utility was only able to get into 10,000 households because of trust issues, once we partnered and we were on the computers and in the media and in the barbershops, having conversations, building those relationships, removing the myths, the miseducation, the misinformation, doors flew open and we were able to do 25 to 40,000 homes in months. So those are the things that why trust matters. It matters because we have a job to do as community to protect our families and keep that resource going in regards to that water. But our utility has a responsibility to do that and keep the water resource available and accessible. So if we're talking to each other and building that trust, it helps with that process. So that's something that we've done in Toledo and across the United States. We've worked with Cincinnati to get that done with them. So there's a number of things that we're doing that are templates, and that's what this guidebook will do. Help you see how this can be a template to lay over any community. That's why trust matters.
Mm-hmm. We've been working on water equity issues for a while, and one of the things we found is that the when trust is not there, um, we don't have a lot of tools to rebuild it. We have a lot of tools to work when trust is there, and we have a lot of different strategies and approaches. But when it's not there, we need to learn more about how to rebuild it. And in a lot of
Mhm.
communities, that is the case, and the stakes are really high. I'll pass it to you, Chelsea.
Yeah, this is so good. I've loved working with the Water Hub and Junction on this. I think meeting Alicia has been so cool because to understand more from the community side when I've worked as the utilities, and I think it's so important, to know and understand utilities and utility workers are going to work every day to make a difference. That's probably why they're in this work is it's a public service. But the stakes are so high when we just don't know how to engage well. And sometimes not because we're trying to hide anything, we're not communicating out and misinformation is filling that gap. And I know of a story to put the ROI to it and put the risk to it, utility in Oregon. they were doing a big project and they didn't follow all their required and legal public meetings and engagement with citizens, because a lot of that's written in, right? And it ended up not only delaying their project by 4 years, which I, the engineers could tell you how many millions of dollars that cost, but it cost them a $10 million lawsuit by a citizens group. And so Jose's so right. When we aren't out there doing this front end work, it costs us so much more later on. And unfortunately, I can't, put that in like a PER is what they call it, a preliminary engineering report for utilities that spells it all out that these utility leaders are used to looking at. But we can tell stories of where it's went really wrong. And by this point, everyone's probably had some kind of engagement that didn't go well with the community that we could have done better on. And I really think the reason this guidebook is so needed is that communications are still looked at as, oh, these are these soft skills and we're not going to invest resources in them. In fact, it's very hard. It's very hard to build trust. It's very hard to intuitively know how to engage our community on some of these things. And what I love about the guidebook, I have my copy right here, and so I want to this one piece of it that I really love. It says, um, looking at communities as partners, not just payers. And that part is so important. And so these are really practical tools. They're not just like a list of 1, 2, 3, do this. It's really practical scenarios that are helping build public support, avoid conflict, which is huge, and prevent crises. And so that's why this guide exists. It's not just about the better messaging, but it's about real partnership between utilities and communities. So really excited to launch it with you guys today.
And this is not happening in a vacuum, um, meaning the relationships between utilities and communities are happening within the broader space of relationships between communities and governments, right? And public institutions. And so what we're seeing in different polls and in media coverage is that there's the trust in the government has been declining for years, especially in communities that have been left aside or left behind for many years. So Black, Latinos, low-income communities. Um, and so the importance of building trust between communities and utilities is also related to building trust or rebuilding trust between public institutions and the residents and the different neighborhoods and the people really that they serve. And so for this guidebook, we did some secondary research. We looked at media coverage and different articles on 5 different places where we've had a water crisis that comes along with a communications crisis or a communications challenge. And then we looked at what were the water solutions and the communications solutions and what were some of the outcomes of that mix of responses, strategies, on communications. And I want to highlight what you said, Chelsea, which is that it's a messy thing. It's not communications between all of these stakeholders in moments where people's lives or people's health are at stake. Of course, jobs as well is not easy. And so some of the principles, hopefully, that we highlight in this guidebook are going to be helpful. And we'll get to that. But one of them is just be transparent. Come and communicate as clear and with the best information available as soon as possible. And then that will spark, at the very least, a good conversation. And so we'll get started. We're not going to cover all of the 5 case studies in this presentation. You can look at all of them in our guidebook, but we were going to highlight 2, one on the utility side, one on the community side. And so I'll pass it to Chelsea to tell us about Central Arkansas and what were some of the challenges and the solutions in terms of communications.
Yeah, and so I do encourage you to check out the other case studies. There are a mix of different water issues that are just so common to all of us across the nation: PFAS, lead pipes. We picked this one because it's about rates. And that's something that definitely everybody on this call, it touches them in one way or another, whether it's as a customer or as the utility. And in full disclosure, this is about Central Arkansas Water and not Rogue, but you might hear me say we a time or two when I tell the story because I did work there when this was going on. And so, in short, what happened at Central Arkansas Water a couple years ago is that they had a huge infrastructure investment plan that was created. And lots of really expert consultants, lots of really smart leaders at this utility. It's a large utility, and the plan hadn't been updated really like since the 70s. And so there was this huge need. And because they have such good service and such good tasting water, really the community and even our elected leaders didn't know that we had this need of pipe replacement and of treatment plant upgrades. And so we came out with something that was really innovative and really new in this 10-year infrastructure investment, which means 10 years of rate increases. It would have doubled a bill over 10 years. And the shock value of that, is a lot, especially when, let's say, a customer wasn't involved in the process. What do you mean it's going to double my bill? I don't even probably know what my average water bill is, but the sound of doubling it sounds like a lot. And so, I think this one's a good one to highlight because in a second, when I get to do's and don'ts, there are some things that weren't done well, and there are some things that were done well, and a lot to learn from here. So, in the course of this, Central Arkansas Water had it serves multiple cities, so the governance is a little bit unique, but one of the cities kind of got up in arms about what do you mean a 10-year rate increase? They were trying to pass a tax increase at the same time. These are the same households, right? A lot of times in water, we're not talking enough to the other local institutions that are touching the same households. And the city council even wanted to vote like to formally oppose the increase, which has never happened since the creation of Central Arkansas Water. So it was a really big deal. Simultaneously, at the same time, a citizens group, I think it was called Citizens for an Affordable Little Rock, they were already planning to oppose the city's tax increase. So they heard about this and they're like, we're going to oppose that too. So what CEW did was go meet with them directly. And I'll never forget this meeting and the conversations that were had at this meeting. Because once we got there and we said, hey, here's what's going on, here's this plant, and we kind of likened it to a car. We're like, we've been running this car, our grandma's car, for a long time, and it's got us a lot of places, but it is time for an upgrade, right? The engine's not working anymore. And a guy in the back of the room raised his hand and he said, the water's, I don't know why I would pay more. My water coming out of my tap is just fine. And he said, what y'all really need to focus on is hiring us. We're out here in the community. We need jobs. Y'all got jobs. Why aren't y'all hiring us? And I think for a utility, a lot of utilities on the call can probably relate to this. And I want to validate the fear of the public engagement and going out into the communities because I was in that meeting as a government affairs manager. We had our customer service manager there as well. It would have been easy for us to say, oh, well, that's not our job. We don't work with that, but thanks for the question. And that's not what we did. So fast forward without going too detailed, you can read more about the case study. But what we did in that meeting is we sat down individually with people, looked at their bill, helped them sign up for low-income assistance, talked with the guy about how can we work in your neighborhood about these job opportunities. And by the end of it, this community group did not oppose us. In fact, they said, wow, I understand, and this is actually really good value, which is that's pretty drastic, and that's a huge win to get them to even say something like that. So if we go, Jose, to the do's and don'ts for utilities, there are actually 8 do's in the guidebook that, if you check out. So these aren't all of them, and they're actually more detailed in the guidebook, but kind of just using Central Arkansas Water as a case study. One of the things that we didn't do well at that time was communicate proactively, not just when the big thing was decided. And so we, worked really hard on that plan and we worked with experts and it was a really good proposal and plan and it ended up getting approved and everyone is good with it. but we didn't bring people along during the process. And I know for utilities, that's really hard. We think it's going to be more work. We think it's going to slow us down. We were slowed down anyway by multiple city council meetings that honestly got bad press and wasn't the best position we wanted to be in. We'd rather have that same press with people who understood what we were talking about instead of, hey, here's some shock value. It's the first time I'm telling you. So that could have been some improvement. What they did really good was partnering with others. I love, and I can't wait for you guys to hear Alicia's story because we need to partner with people and groups that people already trust. So we talk about all the time, meet people where they're at. What that means is don't host, hey, here's at the water utility at 5 p.m. Here's our rate meeting. I'm picking my son up from school at 5 p.m. and then I got to figure out dinner and I probably have some work to get done that I didn't do. I'm not coming to the water utility. I don't even know where the water department is. And so go where they are. There's already neighborhood groups meeting, right? One innovative idea, people say like go to churches and schools and community centers. Yes, do that. Why don't you go if there's a big church in a neighborhood where you have a project that's going to have a lot of traffic, go talk to them on Sunday morning during their service. And I think one feedback you might get to an idea like that is, oh, well, I don't work on Sundays. Thinking a little bit more outside the box, and we all have this role because it's a public service and we want to help our communities. So putting information in the way they want to receive it. So being an accessible location and like venue is one of them. Another one is it's not just about writing clearly. A lot of times we hear don't use jargon. It's also putting it in formats that are easily consumable. Have an infographic, right? And so these sound like easy things, but they are things that we skip over a lot. So I did want to say one more thing about transparency because that obviously we should be transparent. Obviously we want to do that. It's also hard. I know I've been in the shoes like when you don't have a lot of data and you're scared. There's this other example where I really messed up and there was a big project and these people were going to come onto our water system and COVID happened and the project like doubled in price and their rates were going to increase. And we're like, that's not feasible. We don't know what we're going to do. And we were working with the state and financiers and all these other parties. And I didn't know what to say to them. And so I went months and months without just saying anything to the community. And I saw their posts on social media, wondering and questioning and having bad sentiment. And I just didn't know what to do. And so saying something is better than nothing. So yeah, going to the don'ts. There's actually brain science around humans. In order a protection mechanism, when we don't hear information and we don't know something, we assume bad. And that's to protect us. Imagine like back in the day, cavemen, right? They hear a sound in the woods, they don't know what it is, assume it's bad, so you protect yourself. This is how our brain functions. We can't help that. And so they're not being bad if they assume something. We need to be out there communicating. One of the other things is not just relying on what we call a CCR, Customer Confidence Report. A lot of those aren't read and it's not in the best format. We've got to be communicating regularly. I do want to point you guys just to two resources, well, a data point and a resource from American Water Works Association. Ignoring misinformation on social media, it's easy to do, but it's getting us a lot of trouble. And I don't think we're doing it because we want to. We're doing it because we don't know what to do about it. So they have a crisis communication guide called Trending in an Instance. Get in touch with me. I can get it to you or Google it and check it out. And the other thing is they have research and data around touch points with customers. And this is about tap water specifically, but their tap water, when a utility talks to a customer, even if it's one touch point like a bull water notice, which is considered bad, as long as the customer hears from the utility, they're 67% more likely to trust. And so touch points are really important and just communicating in general is really important.
Thank you, Chelsea. I was connecting with my own personal experience as you were talking about this because my wife works as a community engagement person for the city of San Francisco. And so she often needs to go to meetings on the weekends or, at night. to meet elders and residents where they are, and so we understand that part. But one thing that I think sometimes happens is that communities, because they haven't heard from institutions for a long time, they have this anger sometimes, or just distrust and feelings, really, honestly. Sometimes my wife comes back and she's like, oh man, that community was holding a lot, and they just let it all out on me. And it's part of that work, of being there to listen and communicate, both ways, right? And sometimes it's unfair, but it is, a channel, a communications channel that should be open more often, so that that doesn't accumulate. And so I really appreciate that, meeting people where they are, um, and being transparent. Um, we're gonna pass it now to Alicia, and we're gonna kind of like move to the community perspective a lot, or in this case in Toledo.
Thank you. There's definitely where you start to talk about the utility in the community. I think we have to understand there's really limited separation because you are the public utility. You're the public that creates the utility of our water. And that's where we had to start. There's no use if there's no you, right? So we had to understand that when 500,000 people are without water, access to safe, affordable drinking water for 3 days, the vulnerable community members are at a greater risk. So what we started to see was folks didn't know that they couldn't drink their water. In 2014, we knocked doors. We took college students, high school students, any individual who was willing to jump into a truck and go and grab bottled water for families. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, and community members were hearing on the news that you couldn't drink your water. One, that's no way to only communicate, right? And it was no fault of our public utility or our government that we all didn't know, but it had to be a communication plan for us to come together and get that information out into the on the ground, boots on the ground, pun intended, that we had to get to the doors, knocking the doors. I'll give you an example. We got to an elder's door who every morning woke up and part of her ritual was turning on her coffee pot and drinking some delicious Java. Well, we all know that toxic algal blooms, microcystins, if you boil them, they become more concentrated. So you don't boil your water. But we had also had a lot of water main breaks that we tell people to do what? Boil their water. So the miscommunications were real. When we got to the elder's door and began to knock, and she answered after opening all of the locks that she had on that door, we saw her with this boiling hot cup of green coffee that she was preparing to consume because, as an elder, her vision may not have been the best. So, when you're communicating and when you're thinking about your public, you need to understand, we need to understand that our means of communication have to be not only technology based, media based, but also that social human impact where we trust each other to go to the community based orgs, get the information out. Chelsea talked about the time frames when we're communicating. If I'm picking my child up at 5 o'clock or getting off of work, I'm not going to come over at 6 o'clock and listen to a town hall meeting. But having that at 2 o'clock on a Saturday may be better. So we just had to learn how to shift. That poor communication says to the public that I they really couldn't care about my well-being. There was folks that couldn't take medicine because they needed their water to take the medicine. There was individuals who couldn't change diapers or bathe their children. So this was not just, oh, this is a water incident. No, this is a crisis. So, in order to rebuild that trust, we had to understand that in Toledo at that time, there was price gouging. So, the bottled water was quite expensive. And thankfully, our mayor said, you know what, we're going to make the water accessible. We'll go and grab water. And then if you can get down here, so transportation as a barrier. So we had to have trusted community members who were designated to go down and would deliver the water to individuals. So that all the way through is not just the public utility that there has to be trust. There has to be community trust in one another. And one of the things that we took away was not just the transparency after the failure, but teaching people now as we start to cycle through that transparency, the water rates, there needed to be transparency on now we need to treat this water. Now we need to get these things done in order for this not to happen again. And then water filter systems, teaching people how to use those water filter systems to the point where the US EPA came down and we did the trainings, we did the educations and got those things out to folks. So there's a do's and don'ts for community as well. And so some of those do's are for us to ask those good questions. And guess what? Every question is a good question. As an elementary teacher, kindergarten teacher, there was never one question that was not a good question. Don't be afraid to ask the questions, not just the community, but also the utility. How many of our utility folks are sitting in there in a room and wondering what they should do? Don't be afraid to come to your community meetings and ask, what is it you would like for me to do? How can I be of a better assistance? What does this look like for you as a community? Report the issues early. Don't wait until, oh, we got to get a solution, got to get out there. No, if you've already gleaned that relationship, go ahead and tell folks the hard items that we've got to replace all of the water meters. So we got to get in your house to get to the water meters. Well, what you need to get in my house for? If I need, this is a mandate, and talk to them about that. So what we did is we put QR codes out for the mandate for the replacement of the water meters. And folks, if they would give us a time, then we could get out there and replace them and help the utility get that done. Attend the forums, we talked about that. And then talk to the folks that are always talking. What do you mean, Alicia? There's one community member in that community that knows everything about everything, even if they don't. So give them the right information to share. Look at the social media. There's someone that they're always going on Facebook talking about it. Give them the right information. There's podcasts. Have an opportunity to share that information, talk about where they can get resources. Resources are at our health departments, resources are within our universities, and resources are you as the utility and you as the community are resources. How we communicate together is a major resource. It's why this guidebook is so important because it tells you what not to do as well as what to do. So when you look at what not to do, don't just rely on social media rumors. Go ahead of it. Hey everyone, we want everybody to know that we're replacing those lead lines in this community. Here's a community overlay map and walk them through that. When you look at making sure that you not only not spread the unverified claims as community members, but verify them. Call down to your public utility and ask and write down the person's name you talk to. Write down the information and then get right back and say, hold on, I found out that this is what's really going on. We are our best advocate. Don't disengage. Even when the trust is low, engage anyway. Why? People say, well, why are you doing this work? Self-interest. Your loved ones depend on you. And to call the public utility and say it's your fault, when it's an environmental harm, it's all of us responsibility. There's no fault. We just have to learn how to work together. So you get the best results when you begin to talk to each other, create those QR codes, use some of those university students as interns to do some door knocking and share out policy and information. Um, and understand that that digital divide lives for our elders. So they are accustomed to folks knocking on their door, but when you knock on the door, have literature that they can read and is comprehensive as community members. That's what Junction had to do when we were knocking on doors. As we talk with other utility partners, community partners, translation of language, making sure that you're not just focused only on English, getting all of those things taken care of helps to build trust, helps to build community, common unity for the utility and the people.
Mhm. Thank you, Alicia. There's got to be this vulnerability to um, from both sides, because no one has all the knowledge, right? We know that water challenges are complex and they involve a lot of different stakeholders. And I think fortunately we've been shifting um, from this top-down approach to an approach that considers and values everyone's expertise. And so it's really important for the community also to step up, community members to step up and engage and oversee, but also provide advice and provide information and provide knowledge, really, to the institutions and to the utilities as well. So we have some overall takeaways, but I would love to pass it to Chelsea to highlight what do you see, and please feel free to drop any questions in the chat. But when we were in our things to do and things not to do, we're trying to avoid scenarios, right? We're trying to avoid scenarios that contribute to distrust and contribute to further problems instead of solving them. But from your perspective, Chelsea, what would it look like if we had, if we were accomplishing all of these do's and avoiding the don'ts? What would life look like for utilities and communities together?
Yeah, I love this question because just for those listening in, it wasn't a prepared one. I didn't know it was coming, but what I love about it, I don't think Jose even knows this, Rogue Water Lab's vision is um, engaged, thriving communities with trusted, resilient utilities. And so that's what it would look like. Our utilities would be resilient, but our communities would be engaged and thriving. So when we engage them and they trust us, then they thrive and we're resilient. And I love what Alicia said. The we there and the they there is the same people. The water utility is the community. The public is the public and the public utility. That's Alicia's quote. And I love it because what we would see is that people. I was on a webinar earlier this week or last week, and I told them my son thinks water people are like the coolest job. And obviously he thinks that because I work in water, but he really misunderstood what like technically I did in water, but what he told people was so accurate. He said, "My mom makes sure your water's safe." And she's like, "My mom works at the water department." And I'm like, "I don't even work at a water department." And even back then I worked at like this big regional utility, so I used to be embarrassed when he would say it. And then I was like, "No, why would I be embarrassed?" He knows that this is so crucial to his life and his friend's life. And he's so excited to tell people about it. And that's where we should get, where when someone like the community is following Alicia's tips, where they're not immediately blaming, there's some initial level of trust where they say, man, I bet they meant well. I bet something's going on. Let me call so and so, or let me check the website. Um, and it's not their fault that they're right now. A lot of community members, we immediately kind of think negative because we haven't been engaged in the right way. And so the last thing I'll say about this is that some people might be hearing me and say, yeah, okay, Chelsea, like, good wishing. Um, and then not invest the resources in it because they don't see the hope and they don't see the future. But I guarantee you, I'm in this work every day. Alicia's in this work every day. WaterHub does this work. We can do it. We have the skill set. we need it to be resourced, and we can get there. And yeah, my wish is that utilities put the resources in to do this work.
And that's a great point. It does need resources. Engagement and communications and transparency needs people's time and energy and skill building and education and experience, and it's a practice really. So and it's a matter of prioritizing that as well, with the knowledge and the not just hope, but I think the real benefit that it will bring, in terms of resilience, in terms of more efficient and more effective implementation of infrastructure projects, even. So I'll ask the same question to you, Alicia. What do you think this ideal future looks like, especially as we know crises will continue to happen, right? If it's related to climate change and extreme weather events, or perhaps driven by pollution. There's all sorts of challenges, from lead pipe replacing to toxic algae blooms, and so we know that challenges are going to be there. But how can we be better prepared through communications?
I think that the one thing for sure, as you think about the first bullet, listen first, then act. I think we need to add just one piece is to plan and not plan alone. When you listen and you hear something, you've got to write it down because if it isn't written, it doesn't exist. Then you can act. So I would say to that, first, what's the benefit of communications? Toledo and through the Junction Coalition support in building that trust, we've gone across doing this community work. When community doesn't understand, there's a lot of questions and a lot of fear. This guidebook helps us get past the fear, the hopelessness, and the rejection you feel when you don't understand. That's what, when you begin to read through the case studies, when you begin to look at the investment that all three of these organizations have made in this document, it is only to remove the fear and lift the possibilities of trust and engagement. So when you think about the benefits right now, there is the possibility of grant dollars, SRFs, areas of concern, infrastructure, climate resiliency, tree canopy, all of these things. And if we as the public don't know those things, we can't support our public utility in writing some of those stories. The best story that you can have as a community and a public utility is a united front. Everybody wants to fund a united front, not one of hopelessness need, but hope and helpful need. We are all moving towards this. We have our environmental specialist on from Junction, and his goal is always to explain, what are you talking about when you say access to water? What are you talking about when you say wetland restoration? What are you talking about when you say green infrastructure? So if you go to the websites, on many of our websites, there's definitions, right? So you stay engaged by already anticipating what questions will the community have about this. And if you have a community partner, then you can ask that partner first, right? Then that frequently asked questions continue to come up. You can co-create what your water system will look like. It will be resilient. It will be equitable. But you create that, the community and the utility. Therefore, the issue of trust grows as from to a beyond what we expect. And so the benefits that we've seen, we have written with the City of Toledo Public Utility grants for our river and wetland restoration, 600,000 plus, but it started with communications, right? We have written grants that help our utilities to get SRFs and information, technical assistance, where we write a letter of support. Chelsea will tell you every time that you do anything as a public utility or a community, you need a letter of support. It tells you, hey, I stand behind this person. I'm with them. So, community members, as from community member to community member, this guidebook helps us see our public utility as part of us. And to our public utilities, it helps you understand that without you, there is no us. So when you ask what our greatest benefit, our greatest takeaway from this guidebook, it is putting our hands in each other's hands and walking through this process together for the benefits, the return on investment.
Man, all of that was so, so good. And can I jump on to this fear piece? Because when you were speaking, I'm like, that's exactly how utilities feel too. Like we're
Hmm.
scared, they're scared of, oh, what if I go to the community meeting and they have a question I can't answer? What if I go and someone yells at me? And we just we didn't go to school and get the conflict management and how to have, conversations during heightened fear and all of this. Rogue is here to help teach some of that. There are other resources out there. And this guidebook, like you said, is a way it is touches on some of those points. And if we don't get past that first bit of fear to go and have the first piece of engagement to build this trust, we're not going to have those partnerships where we have a group willing to go after a grant with us or willing to sign up with a support letter. And I love that you mentioned those examples, Alicia, because what a great like ROI, right? That stuff
Hmm.
like you can't buy that. And so I'm going to start at the biggest question I get from utilities is ROI, and I'm going to start adding that to my answer because that's really good.
Yeah, every time that we engage with our utility, we ask them, what do you need from us? And now utilities need to say, have a wish list when you walk in the room. This is what I need y'all to do. These are 5 things I need y'all to get out to the public. And have a QR code. Everybody take a picture, get that QR code out there, right? Or just make sure that we're talking to each other. What do you do now that you have this guidebook? If there's a piece that you don't understand, don't sit on it, whether you're the community or the public utility. Pick up that phone or get on that email and you call Jose. You call it Chelsea. You call Alicia. Hey, you all put this together. So we may need you to fly out and help us and support us in getting our community to understand this. This is not, I tell my students all the time, I collect a check every 2 weeks to teach you. If I don't do it, your parents need to come in here and have a conversation with me. We produce this because we have a responsibility. And if you don't understand it, for those that are listening and those who will be reading, we have a responsibility to open it up further. And we're here for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you. Um, I want to just make a pause and open it for any questions from our participants who have been pretty quiet today. So feel free to drop any thoughts, questions, reactions in the chat. Would love to hear more. And in any case, I would totally advise to reach out to Alicia directly or to Chelsea directly or to us if you want to engage more, learn more, or just share your experiences. Um, this has been such a great conversation. My mind took me to this idea of, yeah, utilities and communities should just spend quality time together. Should hang out at the park and get to know each other and have a barbecue and then have the technical, the procedural part be an add-on to that relationship that centers trust and good communication, and just learn from each other. Um,
Yeah, Jose, I
but
totally agree with that. There's a whole lot of open space when you're not confined and you can just talk amongst each other. It builds relationship. So a community utility social hour is something that is so much benefit to. We just sometimes get together and just I think about Regina and Patika who are here in our community and can pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Alicia, did you know this? Could you get this out to the public?" And now it's not just the Junction Coalition. There's other templates that have been put in place for this line of communication. So I'm all
Mhm.
for a public utility jammy jam at the park. That would be awesome.
I love this so much, and I'm gonna clip this and put in some of my presentations because I swear to you, like CEOs, general managers of utilities look at me like I'm crazy when I say, why don't you just like have a community get together and have like some bounce houses and just hang out? Because
Yeah.
they're just not used to it. They don't see, what do you mean? Why would I spend? They want to steward ratepayer dollars well, and I understand that. And you guys, that those are great examples of it. This is stewarding it well. We got to hang out. We got to spend quality time. I think that's so good. You build trust in this way, in the same way you build trust with just a person. I've sat down and had a, drink with Alicia and Jose, and that's how we know each other.
That's right.
So it's so good.
For the love of
Yes.
water. It is for the love of water.
So good.
And,
Mhm.
put on some music and re remember the times. Go back to when all we had was one another, and it moves us forward closer to the possibilities. Thanks for having me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, I wanted to thank
Yes.
everyone too for attending and shout out some of, I know Melissa I saw in the chat from Des Moines. They're doing some really great work up there that I get to see through LinkedIn. And I'm actually going to use them for a case study. I don't think Melissa knows yet, so I'll have to contact you. But the other thing that this makes me think of is it's not just relationships with the utility and the community. What about the community of utility? So in central Iowa, they just band together 12 different utilities on a big regional project. And there's a lot of touch points and a lot of trust building with that. And these guides, can be used for that too. Yeah, Melissa, I'll reach out to you.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you so much, Alicia and Chelsea, for this great conversation. Please feel free to send any questions or thoughts through email. Chelsea's her LinkedIn. We are going to share the recording and a summary of some of the takeaways together with the guidebook in an email in a couple of days. Also, for those that registered but couldn't join but are expecting the recording, it'll come to you very soon. And thank you. We appreciate the conversation and all of you participating. So with that, we'll see you in the next one. And I'll just wrap it up by saying this is a practice. There's no, oh, we did it. We did the communications, so it's we're good with that. Check. It's a practice. It's an everyday practice, and we're all learning.
Thanks,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
See you guys.